So welcome. I want to thank everyone for coming, and I'd like to start the meeting with Devar. Debbie Cadis is volunteered to give tonight's Devar. So Debbie, would you like to share some words of wisdom with us?
Of course.
Thank you.
I would just like to apologize that I wrote this before I went away on vacation, so it's a couple weeks old, if you'll bear with me. The past Shabbat, which was I think 2 Shabbats ago, we read from Parshat Yitro. Yitro, known in English as Jethro, was Moses' father-in-law. He was a priest of the Midianite people, and upon hearing of the miraculous salvation of the Israelites at the Sea of Reeds in the previous week's Parsha, he acknowledged the greatness of God. He also advised Moses when he saw that Moses was inundated with disputes between the people to appoint men as chiefs to judge minor matters. Only the more difficult matters would then be brought before Moses. To a certain degree, this was the establishment of a permanent judiciary system that would in part eventually influence our modern system of justice. This parsha also contains the riveting drama of the Aseret HaDibrot, properly translated as the Decalogue or Ten Pronouncements, but more commonly referred to as the Ten Commandments. The stage is set with the people of Israel preparing themselves for 3 days to receive this wondrous gift. At the appointed time, they gathered at the base of Mount Sinai to hear the words of God. It had all the trappings of a Broadway play or blockbuster movie: thunder, lightning, a cloud of fire, and smoke surrounding the mountain, and the sound of the shofar. The story culminates the process of establishing the national identity and spiritual destiny of the children of Israel. It is said that all Jews, past, present, and future, were standing at Mount Sinai at this moment. This communal experience established the Brit, or covenantal, I don't know what I wrote there, relationship between God and the people, which would last for all eternity. This relationship imposed both responsibilities and obligations. We are referred to as Am Segula, a treasured people, as evidenced by God's abounding and unconditional love for us despite our shortcomings. My challenge to all of you is to consider your part in this Brit. What are our obligations and responsibilities to God, your people, and yourself? How can you fulfill those in your daily life? How can fulfilling those enhance your life?
Yasher Koa, or I should say Yasher Chochech. Thank you very much, and it's certainly something for all of us to think about as we move forward. So as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the last meeting we did not record, but for those who weren't here, just to let you know what you missed, we spoke about phrasing in the letter that goes out to affiliates that have been granted a per capita variance. There were some concerns about some of the way the words that you're getting a consultant were in the letter, and so I passed along our comments to the per capita team. Margie asked me to remind everyone that the next Leadership Institute is coming up in July, and to please promote it. And Margie, why don't you, since you're here, why don't you give the plug?
Well, we're not 100% sure. It's going to either be the last weekend of July or the next to the last weekend of July. We're waiting for the executive director of the synagogue to give us the green light. But we're going to be at Sheila Kaufman's Sisterhood and Synagogue, where Rabbi Abby True is the rabbi. It's whichever orange, pick a direction: North Orange, South Orange, East Orange. It's one of the oranges, and it has a direction in front: South Orange. So that's where we're going to be. And obviously being that close to the megalopolis, I would assume that 4 or 5 regions worth of women that want to participate can literally drive there. So that will help to, many people having to not fly. And Debbie Lempert and I will be doing it. And if you don't know this, it's just a trivia thing. I'm sure Debbie Goldich knows it. I'm not sure if anyone else does. That all of our sisterhoods are numbered when they affiliate, and that sisterhood is number 1. So it's kind of cool. I knew you do.
Well,
So we're gonna, try to do something with that, and I think it's very cool. So it's just, we're gonna be there, and if you have anybody that would like to come, we're trying to keep the prices where they've been. It's that kind of $300 for the tuition, room, not the room, the food, the supplies, everything. And the hotel is pretty reasonable. So if people share a room, it'll be about 150-ish for the 2 nights. And we'll get that publicity out probably this week or so. Debbie Zimmerman has taken over the logistics part of the Leadership Institute. So look for it and please promote it, because we had to cancel Houston, which we never do. And we just didn't have a response. So I'm assuming summer will be great. New York-ish area will be great, but let's make sure everybody, if you know anybody, let's get them to go. Thank you.
Yeah, I echo that. I think especially given this group, we are in touch with many different affiliates, and certainly in our dealings with the affiliates, it's a wonderful opportunity to promote a Leadership Institute. And based on how each of us is working with the affiliate, especially if we see members who we think are future leaders that we would like to see go, to encourage them to consider it, and to encourage them to put this on one of their to-do lists. And if it's not for the upcoming Leadership Institute, but a future Leadership Institute. So that leads right into what I would like for us to discuss as our theme tonight, which is leading versus directing. Wanted to share a quote, which I think kind of sums up the direction I'd like to go in. A good leader inspires people to have confidence in the leader. A great leader inspires people to have confidence in themselves. This is courtesy of Eleanor Roosevelt, of all people. And with that, I'd like to open up a discussion of when you are working with, whether it's a sisterhood president or a region president or a sisterhood board or a region board, how you encourage them to think like leaders and to groom leaders. Someone like to start? Don't all raise your hands at once. Yes, Sandy.
One thing that I find, a lot of women don't have enough confidence in themselves. So one good thing that a leader should do is build up the confidence in their team, that they should praise them, even if they make a mistake, because you learn from your mistakes. And the most important thing is to build self-confidence in your team. If you don't have a team that's confident in what they can do, you're not gaining leadership. So that's one very important aspect.
And you said something that's really, really relevant, which is that we are all humans. We are not perfect. We will make mistakes. The key is to learn from those mistakes in order to be able to move forward and improve, but that it's acceptable to recognize that that will happen and to use it as a learning tool.
Yeah, exactly.
No one else? Gloria, you always have sage words for us.
I don't know how sage it is, but I was waiting for other people to talk first, to be honest with you. Okay. When I would speak to the a board, let's say, and we're talking about opening up a new idea. And you say, well, who wants to, who wants to take on this responsibility? And of course, everybody sits around the board. They look at you like you came from outer space. Let me just take my retainer out. I'm sorry. Hold on. I can't talk with it in my mouth.
Take your time.
I didn't. Okay. So, yeah, Debbie is laughing at me. I didn't think I was going to talk, Debbie. So I would always, when you look around the room and nobody's, responding, I say, let me ask you a question. How many of you have made dental appointments? Everybody raises their hand. How many of you have made social appointments to go out with friends on a Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night, whatever it is? How many of you have arranged carpools? And everybody starts raising their hand. Then you said, well, in my opinion, you are a leader. You've taken on a responsibility. You are capable of doing something. And then of course, everybody starts to laugh. And I think when people start to laugh together, they start to work together. And I think that's always a good start. So getting people to recognize that their skills that they do every single day and have been doing for many, many years through school, through their kids' school, for the PTA meetings, etc., they are leaders. I think people are always afraid that they can't be as good or as smart as the next person. And I think that that's something that women sort of have to overcome a little bit. We are as smart as the next person, and some of us are even smarter than the next person.
And to that point, I'm sure many of us can relate to this when a member of a nominating committee reaching out to a potential candidate, hearing the insecurity, the doubts, and someone who from experience is capable of doing XYZ, but because she didn't think about it, all of a sudden there are doubts. It's also a good idea to pair someone who's having certain doubts with another member who can help them achieve what they want to achieve together and strengthen their confidence in themselves. I see heads nodding, but I don't see hands up. Raise the hand is at the bottom. Yes, Barbara.
I think it's important for leaders to learn how to listen. I think as leaders, we do an awful lot of talking and we don't listen. And I think the more we listen and the more we encourage leaders in our sisterhoods to listen, they'll hear what their members want. But we have to spend some time, and I think that we have to teach people how to listen.
Definitely listening is important. Yes, Marilyn.
Well, what I wanted to say is that a lot of times we all know that the title is what scares people. They don't want to take on the title, whether it's president or vice president, whatever it happens to be. And I think we need to be better at coming up with ways to work around these fears of these titles, how to develop support and let them know, whether it's from within the sisterhood, the region, or Women's League, that they have support, and also too change the title. I mean, you can't do much about a president, but there are different sisterhood affiliates that work in teams, that work on committees, and I think we need to do more encouragement of that if we find that stepping up into a true leadership role is something that women don't want to do.
Thank you, Marilyn. Mimi?
Yes, actually, Barbara Ezring took the words right out of my mouth. So that was my idea too. But in addition to that, allow others to speak. Don't always be the first one to answer a question when it comes up. Let others take credit for some of their thoughts first. And also, be sure to stop and compliment and to say thank you to the group that you're working with. That is just something that is not done often enough, and it just builds people up and makes them feel better.
Thank you. Margie?
I think you have to, we always talk in the Trapeze Buddy book, if anyone remembers that, to be your word. And if you're going to empower someone to take on a task and they say yes, then tell them your expectations and let them fly. If I trusted you to give you a position, then unless it's halakhically wrong or illegal, I don't have to eat the food. I don't have to like your color scheme. I don't have to like the program. I don't care. I don't like to waste people's time. And so I think be your word. If you say to a group, you know, I need to know what's going on, but it's more FYI than Mother May I, and you empower your leaders, then they have some ownership. They don't want to waste their time either. And there's nothing worse than when you ask a group of women to, you know, do some committee work, whatever they call it now, teams, committee, and then they come back to the board and everybody rehashes it again. Then why bother? Why bother volunteering? So I think we have to be our word too and say, if I'm empowering you and your team to figure out the menu, what could happen? I don't need it. I don't need it. But give them the power to make those decisions. Again, unless it's halakhically wrong or illegal. And as a president or as a chair, you want to know what's going on, but they don't need your permission to do every single thing. You have to empower people and let them fly. And if the worst that can happen is they make an error that the chicken didn't go, whatever it is, so what? They won't do it again next time. It's not going to make a difference. So I think that the way we do that is modeling, empowering our members and our leaders, and let them learn and let them fly.
Thank you, Margie. Sandy Eliezer?
Makes me remember back to the very first time I took a leadership position in my sisterhood, which is over 2 decades ago. And I was asked to be in charge of the Sukkot luncheon. I was given the job. Basically, what the leaders at that time did was, I didn't realize it, obviously, they were easing me in to leadership positions without telling me and giving me the opportunity and experience. And so I think about not necessarily talking about taking leadership positions, but asking people if they want to do something small, just building on their experiences, and they build their confidence into leadership. And I'll never forget when the 2 presidents took me out to dinner with my co-president, and all of a sudden I was being asked to be president. And it was I wasn't really expecting it. I didn't realize what they had been doing. They had been grooming me. And it was a very positive experience without being overwhelmed of, you are going to do. They eased us into leadership. And here I am. So.
But I think thank you very much. I think one of the things that we need to think about, and one of the reasons why I wanted to bring up this topic, is that we can see that there are women who've been selected to fill spots as opposed to lead and take responsibility. And we as leaders really should look at this and think about how we can impart the importance of grooming leaders to the region leaders, to the affiliate leaders who will eventually be region leaders potentially. We need to get the point across that it's not a matter of having the title, showing up at a meeting, but what it really means to accept that responsibility and then how to use it effectively. And I think that that's where we as an organization, those of us, especially from consulting services, can see where there are some affiliates that are working very effectively, where there is real teamwork, and there are others where there isn't any grooming going on, where there isn't any teamwork going on, and where all of a sudden, after a number of years, there's a big leadership void because an effort wasn't made to groom new successors. Rachel, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, thank you. As consultants, so sometimes we're already assigned to work with women who are in leadership roles, but they're floundering. And what I have figured out is we have to help them realize they have tools at their disposal. So let's say they're planning, they're holding regular meetings, but they don't send out agendas, and they wonder why their meeting is dreadful. Explain to them, you must always have an agenda. The agenda is key to the organization of your meeting. It will keep you on track. It will give you a reason to move from one thing to the next, to call on people, to get all of those other people involved and participating. Send it out in advance. Tell them you will be asking for them to say something. So let them know they're not in this alone, and that there are ways for them to overcome their own challenges that can be very helpful. Also, if they're doing these meetings on Zoom and they say to you, yeah, but everybody's talking at once, I can't understand. It's like, fine, then use the tools in the Zoom program and say, please raise your hand, or based on the agenda, I'm going to be coming to you in the following order. Let's all only speak one at a time so we all can listen to each other. I don't beat them over the heads with parliamentary procedure. Virtually none of them know what that is, but there are ways to gently use procedure to help them have a more effective meeting and for them to feel successful. And I think the key to this is success breeds success. If they feel successful in the last meeting, they will prepare for the next meeting in a far better mindset. And then that meeting will be better. I definitely was consulting with the group, and the first meeting was a free-for-all. It was dreadful, and they were dreading the next meeting. And I said, I'm going to give you a quick agenda. It's just use it as a template. You need to have an agenda for the next meeting. There was no agenda for this meeting, and it was a complete free-for-all. So let's get moving in the right direction. And since then, they always send out an agenda, and then everyone seems to be much more at ease, and we actually are accomplishing the things that need to get done.
Thank you. Hetty, any thoughts you'd like to contribute?
My favorite part is when it depends on the group that you're coming to talk to, but I always like to let them know what they're connected to. And once you do that, it spurs conversation because many of them don't really know what Women's League is. And that used to be my favorite part of letting them know all the wonderful things that Women's League does. And we really have so much to offer that, that begins the conversation. And then you get into things of what they're concerned about. We're not judgmental. We just want to help you thrive and prosper. And it begins the conversation, and then you could see who the leaders are there that move into the limelight, if you will. I mean, all the things that were said before, I agree completely with, especially the part about being a good listener. Because once you get, some of the points across that you would like mentioned, or do it in a timely way, you want to hear what their concerns are, what their goals are. If some of them don't even know how to set a goal, so there's a lot to do, but you've got to realize who your group is and know how to listen and how to handle each particular time that somebody speaks, and let them speak and listen. Did I say enough?
No, that's great. Thank you. Who hasn't had a chance to speak yet? Debbie?
Thank you. Debbie
I
Cato.
believe in leading by example and teaching the leadership in that sisterhood to do the same. Because they just can't appoint people to do things and then step back too much. I know what Margie was saying is not to micromanage. I do understand that. But also, if their main leadership gets excited about something and grabs people and says, come on, we can do this together, then they might feel better about leading as well.
Thank you, Debbie, which speaks to mindset and the mindset that is projected by whomever is the leader. Debbie Goldich, I wanted to say something. I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's totally fine. So it's interesting that much of what we've talked about tonight is focusing on a group. And sometimes we have an individual that's motivated and wants to be a leader, but doesn't have the skills. And we might have to teach leadership to that person. We might have to work with them and teach them how to be organized and how, as Rachel said, how to lead a meeting, but also, you know, how to keep a calendar and how to follow up with each one of the people on the committee. And I think sometimes we have sort of, as somebody said, filled a slot and not really looked at matching a skill set with a position. And so when we have someone like that, if we're the consultant who's coming in, or if we're the region advisor, we really need to teach leadership. And what does that mean? You know, all of those things, keeping a calendar, leading a meeting, all of the things that have been mentioned. But sometimes it's interpersonal skills. I think that's been mentioned also. And we need to teach leadership to individuals so that we can make sure that we do have future leaders in, you know, coming up.
Yes, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted to have this discussion tonight, because of some things that Renee Ravitch, who isn't with us tonight, and I have discussed, because of some situations that we're familiar with where we see that there are women who have a lot of potential, but who aren't really leading and need a lot of guidance. Toby. Oh, we have a young member with us tonight too.
That's John. When you ask someone to do something who hasn't had a lot of experience before, there were two things. I remember years and years ago in the old notes that we all were given when we first became consultants. It said, ask someone if they've ever put together a dinner for their family, even if it's only for 4 people. You know, if you've put together the menu and did the shopping and the cooking and everything, well, then you are someone who can organize things. And then more today, be positive about it. If you ask someone to do a quote unquote small job, don't tell them that it's a small job. It's a job that you know that they're going to do their best at. And once they do that and they do it in a positive way and everything works out beautifully, then they can start moving up to more and more complicated things. But you have to give them that first stepping stone that, yes, I can do this, whether it be by myself or organizing it or with my team. And then I can build up on that, and you build your leadership that way, and it works.
Thank you. Debbie Catus again?
Yes. I just remembered the reason why I was at the last Leadership Institute that was in California. Thank you, Margie. And I had already been to one in Portland several years before. Thank you, Margie. And Mimi. Was because my sisterhood president needed to go. I felt she needed to go. And of course, this was working with my own sisterhood, not with someone else's sisterhood. But because I took her, or we went together, she had the incentive to go. And I'm hoping that, and I'm sure that has made a big difference in her leadership as well. So sometimes you just need to, and if it's not your own sisterhood, I guess you just need to keep at them. Go to Leadership Institute, as much as possible.
Great. Debbie Green. I forgot we had 3 Debbies tonight.
Is that all? Only 3, huh? That's because Debbie Lempert's not here. I also wanted to add, if you have somebody who wants to do something but is hesitant, can also try staggered positions. Like, I didn't want to be sisterhood president, but I was offered a chance to be in a staggered role. So I was a co-president, and you can do, and we alternated years. So every year there was one experienced president and one new one, and you can do that with any position. So if somebody wants to, but is afraid, I don't know how to do it, you can do that with any position, really, so that you always have the next person in line. And when that woman is in charge, she already has a year of experience.
It's a great way of building confidence, creating the opportunity for a group to build confidence in one another by staggering that way. Marilyn?
Well, the other thing that I wanted to add is I think that sometimes when we ask people to take on any kind of leadership position and they turn us down, that we are too quick to accept their no. And I think that what we need to do is find out why. There will be women who say something like, well, I don't mind, being a president, but I don't want to get up and have to speak in front of the congregation. Or I don't mind being president, but I don't want to have to write these articles that you need to write. And I think that what we need to do is ask that question, what's stopping you? And then figure out a way to work with them. Have somebody else, can write articles for them, take turns on the exec committee, representing sisterhood on the beam. I mean, there's all different ways we can get around it. And we have to find out what it is that's stopping them and how we can make that work for them.
Gloria?
Just going back to what Marilyn just commented on, I think that most women that do not take on leadership positions at the very beginning have a fear of failure. They don't want to fail in the position, so therefore it's easier to say, I can't do it, rather than say, let me try. Not everyone has the confidence to say, let me try. And I think that most women feel, well, I could never be as good as the Debbies are sitting here, or anybody sitting here. They're much better than I, or they write much better than I, or they present themselves much better than I. And it's an image thing. And you would think that, most women today are educated, they go out in the world, they do shopping, they take care of their family, that they would feel better about themselves. But being in a group sometimes and hearing other people present themselves, you say to yourself sometimes, I don't know if I could do what she does. So building confidence is a very, very important part of the job. And I think when you ask somebody and they say they can't do it, I think it's important to say, you're not alone. We are here to work alongside of you. And anytime you have a question, you need some assistance, you know that you can call on me.
Margie?
The last thing I thought of, because I've had many examples of what was the reason that they said no, and we took it off the table, and then they said yes. So I'm right there with you, Marilyn. I think we need to follow our people. We need to teach people how to lead with joy. And I have been to more activities that the paid up membership gal who worked really hard with her team will get up there, and 19 times during her thank you, she will tell the audience how difficult it was. And it was, like, in other words, be gracious to all of us because we work so hard. But she said it so many times. I was sitting there thinking, who would want that job if it was so hard to do? We don't teach our people to lead with joy. And maybe we need to set that example as well. It's joyful. It's fabulous. Look at what all of us, I mean, if we sat here going around the group, what have we personally gained ourselves and skills and friendship and just experiences that we would not have had if we didn't take on these leadership roles. But we have to do it with joy. And I see more times than not, that's not the example. And that's the gal that gets up and is speaking to the audience. And it's kind of, no, no, no. So teaching people to lead with joy, I think, is something we should put on our little menu.
Debbie Goldich. You're on mute.
She knows.
You're still on mute.
So while you're working on unmuting, I just want to make a comment. There was a mention of
I got it.
small jobs in a way that I think all jobs are important, and I think the emphasis should be on the value of the job as opposed to the size of the job. Margie, you talk about the woman who brings the apple juice.
Grape juice.
Okay, so I had the wrong fruit, but I had the right beverage. I think that giving value to every job and not giving it a context that makes it seem like it's negative because it's small, it's not that important, is a real buzzkill. And I think the way to promote it is that this is so valuable and it's so important for us, and we would really appreciate you contributing this way, for whether it's an event or a long-term position or whatever it is. I think that it gives a positive view of it, and it makes the person that you're speaking to realize that they will be appreciated for the contribution that they make. And it doesn't have to be the person who's speaking from the Bima every Shabbat. Debbie Goldie.
So I'm on a cell phone, which
Okay.
is why I couldn't unmute because I lost the screen. I apologize.
It's okay.
So I also wanted to say, similar to what you said, and adding on to what Margie said, that when I work with nominating committees, I always tell them, do not offer someone a job and say, oh, don't worry, it's nothing, it's a nothing job, it's a small job, because it devalues that job, and who would want to take that job? So when you work with a nominating committee, it's important to remind them to say to somebody, we'd love to have you take this job. It matches your skill set. It's a great job to build, self-esteem. It'll build your skills. So when we tell people that we are inviting them. That's the word I use. We invite you to take an honor. And I think we really need to build it up so that they feel that taking the leadership role in Women's League is an honor, and not to devalue the job, as you said, Anise, and to say this is really an important job and it needs to be done. And it may just be bringing the grape juice to the meeting every month, but if you don't do it, no one's going to do it. So when we work with nominating committees, and I think it's important that we remember not to devalue those jobs.
And it's a great way to get someone who starts out with a smaller role to build up the confidence for a larger role. You don't necessarily know that it will work out that way, but it's a great way to groom and see where it goes. Cindy, you're very quiet. Would you like to add something to the conversation?
Sure. I was thinking that it's important to distinguish between leadership and dictatorship.
Oh, perfect.
A person up there, when you think of being a leader, you think, well, you assign people to do this, have them do this. And that's not what you want to do. You want to do what you said, like listen to everybody and help them through their, what they can do and what they can contribute, and not be a dictator.
Thank you. That's so important. It really is important. When I was looking at quotes and to start off our conversation, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't have it written down perfectly, but one of the comments was about how leaders who are dictating or directing are not going to get leaders, they're going to get followers. And if the whole point of this conversation is in our relationships with the members that we are counseling and mentoring to become leaders, improve their leadership skills, groom new leaders, not groom followers.
Well said.
So thank you for sharing that, because I think that's really relevant. I think it's very easy for some people to dictate as opposed to have the space for individuals to grow. And a good leader will give that space so that whomever they're working with will grow, will have the opportunity to do what she can do her best. Anyone else like to contribute? I think I called on everybody. Is there anyone who didn't have a chance to contribute? Oh, Sherry Lynn. How could I overlook Sherry Lynn? Or should I say Fire Tablet?
Yeah, sorry. I had to uninstall and reinstall my program. I think also to make sure that we praise those who are doing whatever they need to be doing and try to really boost them up so that they know that they are doing a good job, or try to lead them in some other way if something really doesn't seem quite right, but to help them go in a good direction.
Great, thank you. Edna, are you with us or no? I think Edna has another meeting also now, so with that, I think that we had a very good conversation. I'd be happy to continue it in another meeting. I think that I would like to leave the discussion at, please remember to keep these points in mind when working with regions, if you're a region advisor, or sisterhoods, if you're working with a sisterhood, because we know that there are, in the case of regions, there are some regions that really would benefit from more leadership grooming, and those of us who are working with regions have that opportunity to share ideas and to encourage members to be better team members and to learn how to work to grow. With that said, let's move on to good and welfare. As I mentioned at the opening, Sandy wasn't able to be with us. I know that we're all thinking of her and have only the best of wishes for her. Refuah Shlema to Margie, Refuah Shlema to Sherry Lynn. I hope you're feeling better. And also, Sherry Lynn has a big simcha coming up, the bar mitzvah of her grandson, Sutton Lewis. And oh, Edna's driving. She's listening, but she's driving. Okay, Edna. And then also, happy birthday to Rachel Ferber, who's going to be celebrating a birthday next week.